Alright guys, today I'll be giving you my top 10 defunct coasters that I wish I could ride before they closed permanently. Now, this will not be including any rides such as King Ka or Top Thrill Dragster that I have ridden, because that just wouldn't be fair. Those rides would obviously not be on this list because, I've ridden them. I'd much rather ride these other rides that I just haven't ridden before. And I do want to note that I did my best to not put similar rides on this list. There's a couple specific examples, but mostly it's about wooden coasters. I held myself back and only put 3 woodies on here because I treat this more like a bucket list. I don't think these are the exact rankings, but these are the 10 defunct coasters that I'd want to ride the most, so let's get into it. So starting off the list at number 10 is Dueling Dragons. This looked like a very unique B&M invert with some really cool elements, especially on the Chinese Fireball side. I know it didn't duel too much in its later years, but I would really like to get a duel on this, on both sides obviously. I know Chinese Fireball looked like it could have been one of the best inverts, and Hungarian Horntail definitely could have also been one of the better ones. Overall, this is definitely a ride that I'm sad I didn't get on, but I don't really care too much because Hagrid's is also pretty good, and it definitely wouldn't be better than Hulk anyway, so wouldn't even be top 2 in the park. But let's move on to number 9, which might surprise some of you. This is Son of Beast. And I know some of you think I might have a death wish with this one, but I personally like really rough wooden coasters, and this was the biggest of them all. This thing was huge. It looked like it might have given some airtime in a few places, but not really too much. It was mainly about those huge turns giving out laterals, and that vertical loop did look pretty intense. Overall, it just looked like a huge monster. And I know my dad did get to ride this thing, and it's his least favorite coaster ever. But given how I like extremely brutal and janky wooden coasters, I think this would have definitely been pretty high in my rankings. Coming in at number 8 is another wooden coaster. This is Avalanche. This definitely looked like the best S&S wooden coaster. The pacing on this ride looked so good. You just hauled the entire time by the looks of it. It looked like you got some really nice ejector pops here and there. The laterals looked really nice on it. Overall, this could really compete with some of the best wooden coasters in the world today. It would definitely be number 2 in the state. I don't know if it would quite be better than Hades, but it could be up there. It definitely could be a top 50 coaster in the world potentially if it was around today, but it's not higher just because there are really fast-paced wooden coasters like this, like Ravine Flyer 2 and stuff like that, but I still really wish I could ride it. Coming in at number 7 is Mindbender. This looked like one of the most intense coasters in the world. I mean, those vertical loops, I hear, really made you gray out or even black out. And the rest of the layout didn't look too bad either. You could have gotten some laterals or airtime thrown in there. But you really ride this for those vertical loops. And I know you still got Olympia looping, All-American triple loop. But I definitely hear Mindbender was the most intense of them. At least not counting how triple loop ran at La Feria. But still, I would have really loved to see how intense this was. But coming in at number 6 is a way more intense coaster, and it is the most intense coaster to ever exist. It is Moonsault Scramble. It is only for a brief moment where you feel these G's, but oh my god, I can only imagine how intense that pretzel knot would be. I mean, 6.5 G's. That is insane to think about. I mean, no other coaster does that. It's stupid to think about the fact that this actually existed. And I get that it had janky transitions or whatever, but if you know me, that helps the ride's case. Give it more character, give it more aggression. This is obviously a very simple ride, but I would have really loved to see how insane this would be. This would be a boomerang on just complete and utter steroids. Coming in at number 5 is Volcano the Blast Coaster. This might be the most iconic of these 10 coasters. I mean, every Thuzy recognizes that mountain, and the mountain is one of the most impressive structures ever in any amusement park, and I just loved how this thing looked with all the interaction inside of the mountain, and the track itself actually looks really cool around it too, but most importantly, the ride itself looked great. The Heartline rolls looked to have really good hang time combined with laterals, and of course those launches looked really punchy. You had that turn in between the 2 launches, which looked to give some really good positive Gs and great sense of speed. And of course, you had that Sidewinder coming out of the volcano. Just one of the most iconic shots ever, and it looked pretty whippy. This is definitely a ride I'm sad I missed by only a few years, but there's definitely a few others that I'm more sad about than this one. Coming in at number 4 is Wild Train. This is definitely the newest one of these 10 to close. And yeah, this is another one that just sucks, especially because of how recent it is. This ride was so unique too. I mean, there's other PAX rides out there, but none of them are as insane as this one was. If you just take one look at how this train went over these hills, you can see that you're going to get absolutely ejected out of your seat. This airtime looked somewhat deadly. I mean, it's tiny. It's got the stats of a kiddie coaster, but like, it's one of the most extreme coasters out there. And it could have been a top 50 coaster in the world, which is really sad that we lost one. The transitions look extremely jank. I just love how these trains look and everything. But I do get that it was unreliable, and Helios will most likely be better. I definitely have faith in Mach to make a better ride than this. But it still really stings, knowing that we have one less sketchy airtime machine in the world. Number 3 and number 2 were really hard to decide, because I think either one of them could have been better, and I think both of them look really unique, play a special part in coaster history. But coming in at number 3 is Eagle Fortress. This looked like easily the best aero suspended coaster. I think this could have been easily the second best aero of all time, and that's definitely saying something because obviously this thing isn't touching Magnum, but I definitely do think this could have been better than X2, which is definitely saying a lot. It looked to have some of the most violent laterals of all time. I mean, those turns, especially at the end, just looked like they mercilessly threw you, and you might have gotten some good airtime just because of those laterals, sort of like you do on Panthurian or Maverick, and the terrain usage is impeccable. Some of the best terrain usage of all time, for sure. The way you just swooped through the trees, and the near misses with all the trees looked incredible. That would be one terrifying visual if this thing didn't have the floor. All of this definitely makes Eagle's Fortress probably a top 50 coaster of all time. But coming in at number 2 is Dodonpa. I don't know if this would have been better than Eagle's Fortress, but it would have been close at least. And of course it would have had the better element with that launch. I would have gave anything to experience that launch. I love King to Ka and Dragster's launch or whatever, but those are nothing compared to 0 to 112 in 1.6 seconds. Did it actually reach that 112 number? Probably not, but who cares? It was insane what this ride did, and oh my god, I'm so mad that I'm never going to get to experience this. The sad thing is I'm probably not too far off from experiencing this because Japan is definitely my top bucket list country. So who knows, that could definitely be my first overseas trip in the next few years. But the actual launch itself, I just can't even imagine what that felt like. I know what King to Ka's launch feels like, and it's like that on steroids, how you just get shot out of that cannon. I loved the build up to it with that launch time 3, 2, 1. And all the lights, the soundtrack for it. It was just a spectacle. And I know the rest of the ride wasn't really anything, which is why I say Eagle's Fortress could be better. But it doesn't matter. That launch would have been one of the greatest elements of all time. So that is the list, number 10 through 2. Those were some tough decisions. But number 1 is perhaps one of the easiest decisions I've ever made. And it's not even one specific coaster. It is none other than the terrifying triplets, the 2 Cyclones and Lightning. If these were around today, these would be the only coasters that I could genuinely see being better than Air Force One and having like a 2% chance or something like that. Like I feel like for rides like T-Express or Egenika, anything like that. No, this would have had a 50% chance or greater of being better than Air Force One, the coaster that I always praise for being undefeatable. These 3 rides looked disgusting. Okay, there's no other way to put it. These things absolutely earned their name of the terrifying triplets. There is no hiding the fact that these things are dangerous. There was a nurse outside of Crystal Beach Cyclone for a reason. It's because this thing broke people, and it is absolutely the most aggressive coaster of all time. At least for laterals. Like, maybe it doesn't have quite the airtime of Air Force One or something. Maybe it doesn't have the speed or diversity, but man, in terms of raw power, this thing would have been unbeatable. And in terms of airtime, it's definitely got that covered with that insane airtime run in the middle of the ride. I mean, if you just watch that thing, it makes Air Force One's quad down look slow. And given the fact that you definitely didn't have that restrictive of restraints on this, I can't see how people didn't just die and fly out on that airtime run. And there's plenty of other insane moments, like that trick track section right after it. There's some really low to the ground snaps that would have absolutely tossed you around. Some other really intense looking drops that would have gave you deadly ejector airtime. And given the fact that it was extremely rough, which I know most people think that's terrible, I think that's a good thing, making it even more aggressive. This just would have absolutely destroyed any coaster today in terms of raw power, and I get that it was like almost 100 years ago, but I don't care. If I was given the option between, like, I don't know, some millionaire lifestyle or to ride these, I would choose to ride these, because these are not only the defunct coasters I'd want to ride the most. If these were around today, these would by far be my top bucket list coasters, and it is a real shame that there will never be anything like these again. So that is my top 10 defunct coasters that I wish I could have ridden. Let me know what your list is down in the comments below. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.